Okay, we are back with Brian Almon, the Gem State Chronicle, and this morning in the Senate State Affairs Committee, Senate Bill 1289 was before the committee. This was also the time for the public to give their comment. This bill has been known as the library bill. It seeks to restrict minors' access to graphic materials that may or may not be in the library. That seems to be a big question of whether these books even exist. But nevertheless, this bill is here. It was brought before the committees by Representative Jaron Crane, and then it was summarily taken back by the committee as it made its way to the floor to be rewritten and reworked with Senator Jeff Schroeder, who presented it today. Brian, you were there giving public comment. I believe we have, guys, do we have a thumbs up? Do we have a clip of Brian this morning? Should we play that? We got it. Yeah, let's listen to your testimony this morning, Brian.
Members of the committee, my name is Brian Almon. I am a member of the Eagle Public Library Board of Trustees, though I am here speaking on my own behalf. And I want to ask, what if libraries and school libraries gave out cigarettes and alcohol to minors? That would be absurd. Nobody would support that. We've decided as a society that those things are not for children, and we've defined the age at which children can become adults and handle those things. Yet there are some things that children can see on their library shelves that I think are just as harmful. And our current statute recognizes that, but it carved out the libraries and schools. The materials that have driven this controversy are not biology textbooks, not about classical art. They're clearly obscene. There's been many examples brought before the committees over the last few years. This really is about a fraction of a percent of the books that library staff curates. And as a reminder, they do curate. They choose what goes on the shelves. No library can handle every single book that's ever been made, so they have to make decisions. I think this bill is a good start, a way to ensure that the most heinous examples of these materials are kept out of minors' hands. I know many people in my community, the conservative side, are frustrated that the bill doesn't go far enough, that it doesn't provide a stronger method of removing these books. Obviously, there are many on the other side who believes it goes too far, and that any obstacle to children accessing materials is too far. I don't believe this is about a First Amendment issue. I believe it's just about protecting children. I think this bill creates a reasonable process that allows patrons of a school or library to bring materials to a committee made up of their community members. If it's possible that the committee is stacked with people who agree with the existing board, at least it will be out in the open in a public hearing. They'll have to justify why they believe this book does not fall under those harmful to minor statutes. I've long believed that a community committee is a good idea. At a meeting last month, our library director out in Eagle also suggested that idea. It was unprompted. He came to the same conclusion. Eagle already has a request for reconsideration, and so I believe this strengthens what we're already doing. So I believe this bill is a good compromise between enforcing our basic statutory standards for what's harmful to minors and retaining community control over everything else. And so I urge the committee to pass this, send it to the floor with a do pass recommendation.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. I don't see any questions.
Okay. Brian, were you in the room when they decided on whether or not they should send this bill along? What's the latest on this bill's journey?
So yes, I was there, and if you go to my Twitter account at GemStateBrian, you'll see I was live tweeting, except for when I was up there testifying. It's an interesting bill because it's very divisive in that, or I guess divisive is the wrong word, because there were people on the right who were testifying against this bill because it didn't go far enough. Ron Nate of the Idaho Freedom Foundation testified against it. The Idaho Family Policy Center testified urging them to amend it and make it stronger. And meanwhile, of course, the usual suspects, the librarians and the library staff and the teachers, were coming out against it because they don't like anything that says that they can't give whatever they want to children. In the end, it passed 6-3 out of committee. And the 3 no's were the 2 Democrats, Senators Wintrow and Ruchte, as well as Senator Ben Taves, who's one of the more socially conservative members of the Senate. He was concerned that the bill didn't go far enough. And what I'm hearing from my conservative friends is that they're worried that if this passes, then they'll wipe their hands of it, call it good, and won't do anything stronger. However, as you heard from my testimony, I think it is a good and reasonable compromise. I think this will give members of communities, patrons of libraries and schools, a tool that they can use. And they're not going to get everything out that they want. But it will at least bring it into the open, into public debate, what is actually appropriate for children.
So can you give us a little bit of insight onto what the main difference is between the original bill, which was sold as the best bill in the nation? I believe that I may be paraphrasing, but that's how it was conveyed. The best bill in the nation when it comes to this issue. What is it a better bill now? What I mean, it sounds like if certain people are a little disappointed in it, and the library and some of the library people are still against it, that it may not. Where is it at? What do you know? Do you know the main difference here?
Mm-hmm. So I just want to mention that the Idaho Library Association also testified, and they are neutral, which can be a red flag if you're on the right. But they're not for it or against it. So Representative Jaron Crane's original bill would mean you fill out a form if you believe a book should not be in the library or in the children's section, and then the library has 30 days to consider that, and they can either then move the book or they can reject the request. If they reject the request, then you have a civil cause of action. You can essentially sue the library and say, hey, this book is violating this existing statute against harmful materials to minors. And then the judge would come down one way or another, with the maximum fine being $250 for the library plus attorney's fees, which, as people point out, could be a lot. At the same time as Representative Crane's bill coming in, Senator Schroeder introduced a different bill that would create a committee to evaluate reconsideration requests at school libraries. So what this does is it basically combines the two. It creates a universal form that all the different libraries and school libraries will have to have available for reconsideration, and a patron of that library, so a parent of a child of the school or a parent of a child who has a library card at a local library, fills it out and says, okay, this book violates the statute because of this. And so it's very specific. And then the school board or the library board of trustees would have the opportunity, or needs to have preemptively created a committee of people, at least 3 people, one of which who has to be a parent of a minor child in that jurisdiction. And that committee will then hear that, and it will be an open meeting. Senator Schroeder compared it to a planning and zoning meeting where you have, where you have the person who submitted the form comes in and explains their case, and then you have the library, if they disagree, explains their case, and then that committee decides. If the committee doesn't decide according to what the requester wants, then they can go up a level to the board, and then there's judicial review after that. The cause of action only comes into place if the committee decides that, yeah, this book violates the statute about being harmful to minors, but it's still on the shelves. So if the committee says, yeah, we think this book totally shows graphic sex and it shouldn't be in the children's section, and then the person comes back a few days later and finds that the librarians have put it back in the children's section, then that's where the civil action comes into play. So again, according to who you ask, it's either still too punitive or it doesn't go far enough.
Right. Well, fantastic breakdown there, Brian. I appreciate that. Okay, folks. Well, that's the bill where it is. So it's Senate Bill 1289. It's making its way out of committee onto the Senate floor. We'll hear more debate on this. And I guess if you want to read up about it, you got to go to the legislative website and look up Senate Bill 1289, and contact your senators now and figure out exactly where they stand and what you think should happen with this bill. Brian, I appreciate you breaking all of this stuff down. I want to make sure everybody knows where they can find you, where they can keep in touch with you, because you're doing great work out there.
Thanks, Matt. And I appreciate you having this program on every day, bringing people, into the process, because that's so important. You can find me at GemStateBrian on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now, gemstatechronicle.com and gemstate.substack.com if you want to subscribe. Everything that was at the Substack is republished at the Chronicle. There you can see on the left-hand column, but I'm also republishing guest editorials and keeping up on bills. I need to catch up on that today. And, you see on the right, you see all my appearances on Idaho Signal. Whenever there's a video that I'm involved with, I try to post it there as well.
Fantastic. We appreciate that. And for all the work you're doing down there, Brian, we thank you so much. All right. We will check in with Brian maybe later this week too and see what else is going on. It's going to be a busy week, I imagine. Brian, have a great one.
Thank you. You too.
All right. All right, folks. We've got a lot to get to, so we'll take a short break and be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.